ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Reidox4life podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Levi, and this is Lamika Renee. And today, our topic today is how service providers are making a difference in their community. And today's guest is none other than Cassidy Bones. Let me see, she's a wife, she's a serial entrepreneur, hey, she's a doggy mom and forever student. She is CFO, the COO, and owner of Beyond Bones Chiropractic.
Of so many things, it's crazy.
Ooh, that was a mouthful.
Yes. It is a mouthful. It is. I do have a confession to make. I'm not actually a doctor. Okay. Everybody thinks that I'm a doctor. I get mail to Dr. Cassidy. Every time I meet somebody in like BDC or I go to like a college campus to speak, like, hey, Dr. Cassidy.
Okay. No. All righty. So let me run through that again then.
Okay, we're going to rewind then. So what do you do?
So I do like the COO, CFO stuff for Beyond Bones Chiropractic, which is my husband's clinic. And I own the club with Sean Dill and Lacey Book, and then with Ryan also, which teaches chiropractic students how to open clinics, some mindset stuff, and then also how to find some really bomb associate contracts and how to negotiate. So that's 1, 2. I own CassidyBones.com. So I do like one-to-one and group coaching. Lacey and I own something called the High Performing Entrepreneur Company. So we have like planner, cookbook, all the things that we wish we would have known when we started business. Like that's what we're teaching from like a very holistic perspective, not necessarily like health holistic, but like whole, WHOLE.
Yeah.
Holistic. Yeah. And then I have 2 new businesses that I'm starting that I'm not quite talking about yet, but they're all like very get your shit together. One of them is literally called Get Your Shit Together. Get your shit together and like strip the weird labels that we give ourselves and get back to you.
Okay.
Ooh, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very excited about that one. I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Take off that facade and let's get to the real deal.
Yeah, the authenticity.
Yes. All righty.
Yes. So Cassidy, I'm sure our viewers would love to know who Cassidy Bones is and what inspired you to venture into this career path.
So I am Cassidy Bones, obviously. And I grew up in a pretty, I wouldn't say like an entrepreneurial family at all, but definitely like I was the weird kid who was always brainstorming, like, how do I make money? How do I make this change? How do I do these things? Like when I was 5 years old, my mom loves to tell the story of how we were like recycling cans and we would take them to the recycling place and get money for them. Right. And so I was like, well, Mom, we should fill the cans with dirt to make it weigh more because then we'd get more money, or we should fill them with pennies because surely you get more than a penny. And so like at 5 years old, I'm trying to like find ways to make more money and to make things easier and better and all these things. And then she had to teach me about like, ethics, because it's not morally or ethically appropriate to fraud people into giving you money. Right. But it's been like that my whole life, and I grew up in that like fairly conservative family, pretty like strong gender roles. My family's pretty religious. And so it was always kind of like this, grow up, you go to college, you get married, you have children. My mom taught us to be very independent. So it was always like, go get a career, do your thing, and have your children, which I think is unique and gave me a very different perspective on the world. And that kind of inspired me to just go get whatever I wanted. And I'm so grateful for that, because then I started in real estate and I started at like 18 and I did all these things and I had all these business coaches and mentors and listened to podcasts and just like consume all this content and knowledge. Right. And pretty soon I found myself constantly being asked to help people in their business or being asked for advice in their life and things like that, which was bizarre because I was very, very young, still young, but I was very young at this point, probably like 19, 20 years old. And then I met my husband And my husband's a neurological chiropractor. He had just opened his practice and he had killed it in the beginning, like killed the marketing, like well over 100 patients booked. Well, not well over, he had like 103 patients pre-booked for his grand opening, all these things. And I came into his business because he was experiencing this massive burnout. He had this huge success and he like didn't want to go to work. And he didn't know why. And he didn't like retain a whole bunch of those new patients. And so I was like, oh my gosh, let me help you. I'll do it for free. Like, I'll just come volunteer. And so I built some systems and procedures and checklists and all these things. And I tripled his practice. I tripled his revenue, tripled his patient base, tripled everything within 3 months of that starting. And it was just like, in that moment, it felt like a one-off thing. And then I did it for somebody else. And then I did it for somebody else. And I was like, hang on, I think there's something here. And that is kind of just what stemmed everything. And now I have 6 businesses and 8 employees and 2 dogs and a husband and all sorts of things. It's crazy over here.
Nice.
That's very impressive. That's very impressive to say the least. At an early age, you started out as an entrepreneur. Like you said, you was your mom, you was helping your mom in her recycling process, which is good. Man, so let me ask you this. What is the most bizarre thing, or one of the most bizarre things that someone asked that someone asked you to do, or had someone asked of you?
Oh, so it just like, it felt very bizarre to me as like an 18, 19, 20-year-old that people were like, nobody really at that point was asking me about relationship stuff, but they would ask me like, hey, how would you word this? Or can you run this open house for me, even though you're not a licensed agent and that's completely illegal? Like, like you're just better at talking to people, or you're just better at like, I think you can sell this house and I don't think I can sell this house. Or
okay,
like, I'm having this problem with my employee. How would you handle it? And I'm just, a 19-year-old walking around in stilettos and a pencil skirt, like basically feeling like I was playing pretend, but somehow the playing pretend worked. And don't get me wrong, I was like super emotionally mature for other people in their businesses, extremely emotionally immature and very not self-aware in my own role, in my team, like the real estate team and all the things. So it was interesting at that point how different my internal life was and the way that I was handling that from the way that I was handling other people's businesses. And that's much more in line now.
Oh, okay.
Much
So
better.
you were wise beyond your years.
I guess. I don't even know how people become that way. That's crazy.
Well, you definitely have a true entrepreneur spirit.
Yes.
It just glows.
Thank you. I love it. My brain's always on it. In the middle of a conversation with somebody, I'll be like, oh my gosh, have you considered doing this? What if you made a subscription service and you did this, this, and this? It just never stops. Never shuts up in there.
That's good.
That's good. Yes.
Yes.
So what is the one thing you wish you knew at the onset of your career?
I think I can probably boil it down to like 2 things. So number one, the way that there's so many things, but the way that I am living my life personally matters. And the way that I am caring for me matters, because for a really long time, I was like volunteering in Ryan's office on basically a full-time basis while helping run my real estate team, or running the real estate team. And like volunteering, and just got on a board for a nonprofit. And I was living my life in chaos. I mean, like just running from appointment to appointment. I wasn't eating. Like I was so busy and so like unaware of what I needed and my time and how important it was to take care of my own stuff, that like for a really long time, I drove around with a tire that was like so bald. I had like ran over a nail or something, but the nail was in there. And so like 2 or 3 times a day, I would reinflate the tire versus spending the 2 hours to go get it fixed or whatever. And it just blows my mind. And I like lived on Cheetos and queso and Red Bull. And I just wish that I would have known, if I took better care of myself, like foundationally made sure that self foundation was secure, everything would have been so much more explosive. Everything.
Yes, definitely. I definitely agree with you on that. Hey, could you tell us a little bit about the experience of being on the board of the nonprofit?
Oh, it was so fun. So I'm not on any nonprofit boards currently, which has been a really nice break because it's very involved, but I was on what people refer to as a working board. So it's my very first board ever. It was for the local young professionals group. And I learned so much. I had no idea what Robert's rules were. I didn't know anything about like process and how things technically like should work, right? Like there's a procedure, and it was really cool. It got me the most out of my comfort zone. I could speak one-to-one with people, and I could not speak to save my life in front of people. Like that was a different level of skill that I just had never invested in learning. So I just learned a lot about like the community that I live in, which was great. I learned a lot about scheduling for myself, scheduling for other people, a lot of PR stuff, which has been extremely helpful to me in business and life. And it was fun. I love working on nonprofits.
Excellent. It sounds good. I really love that.
Yeah, yeah. And self-care is so important, and it seems like you got it. You're well put together. I see it. We talked before we even aired, and yeah, you're pretty awesome. So
thank you. It's not always like this. I have like systems and procedures. I talk about systems and procedures all the time, but I have systems and procedures because I just this summer found myself in this crazy place of chaos. Like, again, not eating, not hydrating. I'm not moving my body. Like, I'm not giving attention to my relationships, like to my husband, my family, my friends, all the things. But then I got the calendar reminder that says like, audit your schedule, audit your life, which is in my calendar every 45 days. And I was like, holy crap, my schedule is out of control. I am not eating, I'm not doing these things. And so there's just like these systems that I have in place to put me back on track when I get off track. Because we're people get distracted, people get busy, life gets busy,
Yeah, and burnout is real.
Oh, for real.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. So Cassidy, what habits have you embedded to help you succeed, and what lessons have you taken from it?
Calendar alarms. Calendar alarms. So I have a really rigid, I teach a lot of people. Most of my clients come to me and they start in this place of absolute chaos. I mean, the majority of my clients are moms. They have children, obviously. Most of them have dogs, a spouse, careers, or they have like a side hustle they're trying to get off the ground. And those calendars my clients like either don't have a calendar and a planning system in place originally, or like on their calendar, kind of like we were talking about this summer, right? There was no spot for me on my calendar. Like they're in a very similar place. So I have a wind up routine in the morning that's very simple. Your routine doesn't need to be crazy. It just needs to put you in a good place. And it does not need to be the same as your husband's. I made that mistake for a really long time. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to wake up at the same time. We're going to do all these things together. It's going to be great. We're going to start our day together. That is terrible. We very different chronotypes, very different people. We need very different things. It's fine. But I have a wind up routine. I have a wind down routine. And in my wind down routine, this is actually something I learned from David Meltzer, probably about a year ago now. My tomorrow starts tonight. So I like read my schedule every single Sunday. Ryan and I have a little like 10-15 minute meeting. We look at our schedules together. We look at our tasks. We scan through our emails, make sure we haven't missed anything for the week, things like that. But every single night I preview my schedule for tomorrow, and I make sure like, okay, this is what I'm wearing. I'm mentally prepared for this. And then I visualize my day. And since starting doing that, my day is generally smooth as can be. I mean, it's pretty rare that I get crazy off track unless there's, a fire. We own a couple businesses, so it's likely that there's a fire or an employee calls in sick or something like that. But outside of those things, that habit of just previewing my schedule the night before and looking at it on Sundays is the best thing ever.
Excellent. You're right about that. You know what? In fact, we've heard that same thing, from Dave Meltzer. He said, "It's tomorrow starts today."
Yes.
Yes, and yeah, so I love that. So it's kind of, man,
It's beautiful.
Exactly. We go by that too, right? To some degree, right? Sometimes we get off, but,
Yes.
but exactly. Start preparing today for tomorrow, right? Because if you know what we want to do on the next day, hey, it makes it a little bit easier, right? We're processing that thought and those thoughts in our minds. And so we know how to approach it. So we're not surprised.
Yes, right. Like there was on this Monday, I did not look at my calendar ahead of time. I was tired. I was all the things. So I just went to bed and I woke up the next morning. I was in the middle of getting ready for something else entirely. And I got a calendar notification. All of my calendar notifications gave me like a 30-minute lead time. And it was a notification for a talk. And I was like, oh my God. Like, all right, I'm getting in the shower right now. I can do this. I can make this happen. And thank God that I had that calendar system in place anyways. But if I just would have looked ahead of time, I would have just shifted the way my morning went. I'd already prepared for the talk. It wasn't like I didn't know what was coming. I just don't know what day it is generally.
Excellent. Well, that's great. That's great. That's great, Cassidy. We enjoyed, listening to you, talking to you, and interacting and stuff. It's been a great conversation. So, and I hope our listeners, will be able to take this advice that you have shared with us on today, and and hide it in their heart and utilize it. So
thank you. Me too.
Yes, definitely. So, is there one last thing that you would leave the audience with?
Ooh, I wasn't prepared. Drink your water, check your schedule. I think it's really easy to look at social media or to listen to what I'm saying about my calendar and like, I look really put together right now and all these things. And then be like, shoot, I am behind the 8 ball. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not prepared. I'm not whatever. Just stop with the comparison, build systems that work for you. Don't try to use my system exactly the way that I do it. Make your own adaptation.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's excellent. All right. That's, ladies and gentlemen, Cassidy Bones.
Thank you.
Chiropractic. Owner of Beyond Bones Chiropractic. All righty. So Mrs. Cassidy, how can our listeners, find you online?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all the things. It's just at Cassidy Bones, CassidyBones.